Hey guys, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Q&A number 12, where you guys ask me questions, and I do my very best to answer them and help you guys out. Got a lot of great questions this week, so I'm going to get right into them. So first off, the Money Team Angel is asking me a ruling question about number 46, Dragulon, about negating effects and things like that. So he's asking about, whether it can negate effects in the graveyard. So a big thing to notice is that on Dragulon, it actually says it only negates the effects of monsters your opponent controls, and you can't control a monster that is in the graveyard. If it's not on the field, it's not, in control of anyone, so it can't negate an effect in the graveyard very easily because of that fact. The monsters it's controlling, those are the effects you can negate. So heretics and things like that, that will be able to have an effect that activates, from the graveyard. You won't be able to do anything about that. And then David Wilford asked me, what's the funnest deck I've maybe built or played against, and also what archetype I want more support for. So first off, a lot of people ask me this really a lot, is like, what's my most fun deck? What do I play the most? What do I enjoy the most? It's tough because I go between so many decks. I have a really lot of them, so I bounce between them all the time. I really enjoy my Baby Raccoon deck. I have a lot of fun playing with that for some reason. I really like Constellars, I really like Ancient Gears, so I like a lot of different decks. And I honestly have fun with every deck I make, or else I wouldn't make them. I have fun whenever I play a new deck, and when I make a new deck, I play it a lot, just to, keep enjoying it, keep understanding how it works, and learning new things about it. As far as what I play against, it's just anything unique, anything creative, anything I haven't seen before. I think that is just really cool. Regardless of whether it's annoying to play against, or I can't beat it, or whether it's really bad, if it's unique and if it's creative, if I haven't seen it before, I think that's really cool and fun. As far as which archetypes I want them to add more support to, me personally, I think they should probably add more support for tunes, maybe Ancient Gears, mostly just archetypes that haven't seen support in a while. Regardless of whether I enjoy the archetype or whether I think it deserves the support, they should add support to any archetype that hasn't seen it for a while, just to keep things fresh and keep things interesting, because that will make the game more long-term fun and make it more enjoyable for all the players out there that want to play all these different deck types. So then Yash Kathamni is asking me about making like a Gandora deck, a weird card that I haven't really considered making a deck about. As far as any decks, if you want to make me to make a deck, just post in my deck request video. I'll put a link for you guys if you want to see that, but I only take my requests through there. You can also send me them on Twitter. I'm going to be accepting them on Twitter as well if you want to do it that way, but no deck is out of the question. So if you want to see me make a Gandora deck, just make that request. Definitely seems like an interesting card. Even though I can honestly say it looks pretty tough to make a deck around, I could still try. And now Ryan Torley is asking me about Appropriate. So this is a card that I use pretty regularly in my Slifer deck. It's a big part of my Slifer deck and how it works. A lot of people are confused about how this card works. I can't really do the huge, explanation on the whole reasoning behind this card. It has to do with chains and all this other stuff I don't want to get into. But the basic thing is that there's two big parts to Appropriate. Is that in order to activate Appropriate, the last thing that happens has to be like a draw. So like Upstart Goblin, like he's saying, that will run into issues. So it needs to be something that just draws outside of the draw phase. And also, when you flip Appropriate up, it doesn't give you the draw. It only gives you the draw on additional draws. It has to do with with chains, and I know the errata or whatever has been changed, what the cards actually says, but they've kept the ruling and how it's supposed to work, and I don't think there's been any arguments over this. It's always stuck to that thing that it's only for additional draws. So yeah, it might be a bit confusing for some people, but it's just one thing to note about Appropriate, and that's how it works. And if you want to look up the specifics to exactly why it works that way, it has to do with chains and all this stuff. So but if you want to use that card, it's very important that you understand those two parts of it, because it is a very confusing card, but it's a very potent card in certain decks. And now Ryan Woodward is asking me about what my favorite structure deck is. I did say in the last video that I haven't bought packs in a long time, and when I did buy cards, I did buy mostly structure decks. Still been a while since I bought any of them, but probably like the original Kaiba deck I was a huge fan of. It had, I think, Blue Eyes and like Lord of D and like the Flute of Summoning Dragons. Back then, that was so cool that you could bring out, 2 Blue Eyes at once. That was really, really crazy. So I had a lot of fun with that back then, even though that combo, like, even when it was in my deck, it never came up because of how many cards you need to make it work. Still really fun, and I really like that structure deck. And he's also asking me about what other hobbies I have. Man, I could go on this question for like a long, long time, so I'll just try to keep it as short as possible. There's a lot of things I do outside of the game. I play a lot of other games. I play a lot of Street Fighter. I'm really into fighting games. I follow that competitively, and I try to watch a lot of streams. I play a lot of other games. I play MMOs and RPGs and whatever game comes out. I watch some TV, not that much. I usually watch, drama like Game of Thrones and House of Cards and things like that. So I watch some of that. In going with my YouTube stuff, I do video editing and random, creative stuff like that because it's really fun for me. Yeah, a lot of, various hobbies like that. But obviously this game does take a lot of my time with all the stuff that I do with it. And finally, Simply Yugioh is asking me a question about, archetypes and if I'm interested in them, like based on, what's behind them, the story behind them, the lore and things like that. So honestly, it doesn't really grab me too much when it comes to the story. It's not really what interests me behind the cards. It's more about gameplay and how they look. Artwork can be big for me, but it's not completely about. It's not really completely about the story or the idea behind the deck. I think it's interesting. It's cool to know that, but I don't think it really inspires me to play that based on that. It's interesting because a lot of times you'll be playing a deck in a lot different way than it was designed to play. Or it was like put in the show or the story. Like a big example I'd say is like Earthbound Immortals, where each one is supposed to be this really, really ridiculous monster that one person has one, another person has another, and because it's so powerful and it represents them or whatever, and then their deck is supposed to be designed similarly to it. It's just not really how I play Earthbound Immortals. Some people might, but like I play an Earthbound Immortal deck. I put like one of each, and so I have room to choose each one and have different effects and different options. But that's me, and they're also tech in other decks. So sometimes the story is interesting. Sometimes it really runs in the way of what like your deck even tries to do. And if you have a reason for playing a deck, whatever that reason is, that's fine. If you like the story and you like the reasoning behind that, you can have fun with it. But it's tough to try to translate that over to gameplay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it could be really, really a shame when you see a really cool deck in the show and you want to play it, but it really doesn't play like it's supposed to. And whenever I look to new archetypes and things that are going on in the game, the story, it's really second. I might want to know that eventually, but, I want to be impressed with like gameplay. Like, what is it doing new? What is it bringing to the game that I haven't seen before? And somehow Konami does that. They do that all the time. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the archetypes they release are pretty dumb, but a lot of times they do. They just put out artifacts, which I think have a very, very different gameplay style. And it really impresses me with that. I might want to know, what's with these artifacts that look like they're just all like weapons? How can that be like a group of monsters? Like, how can that make sense in a story sense? So I might go back, and look into that and see, the idea behind that. But for now, it's just, the gameplay. What is it doing? What is it bringing new to the game? And what will keep the game fresh and interesting for me? So those are all the questions I received this week. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. If you do have a question for me, you can post in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. Twitter can be a little more reliable just because YouTube comments can mess up sometimes, but it's up to you guys. You guys can ask me about rulings. I really like to help people with rulings because I know a lot of people are not sure about how certain things work. You can ask me about decks and archetypes and all kinds of stuff, random stuff if you want. You can ask me about something outside the game, like Ryan Woodward asked me in this video, and I'll do my best to try to answer that as well if I'm able to, if it's not too personal. And also just a quick reminder, if you guys don't know, Primal Origin came out today, so I'm really excited to see some people, pick up artifacts, redo their decks, add some of that new tech that's been added for so many different deck types. So just random note, I'm very excited about that. But for now, that's about it for me. I'll see you guys next Friday for another Yu-Gi-Oh! Q&A. Thanks for watching. See you later.